Yo, 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 what's good, everybody? Kicking off the SOS. It's me, your boy, Brandon. That wasn't as hype as I made it sound. That was actually kind of whack. Uh-oh, we got Marcus in here. All right, let's see what's up in here.
Oh man. I mean, shoot, you might as well. Shit. Look at Gal. Look at Gal. Look at him.
All right.
Look at Gal.
I'ma need you.
He can make Instagram live work, but he can't save Africa. Goddamn. I'm just kidding. I'm just
Tell them
kidding,
niggas to
Brandon.
get some broadband.
Shit. Hello, Praysha.
Oh, wait a minute.
Hold on. You gotta play that Kirk Franklin.
This is Kirk Franklin.
Yeah, Kirk Franklin's a gangster. He toast that iron. He said he'll break him in his neck. How you doing, Praysha?
I'm good. How are y'all doing this evening?
Are you
We
blessed and
good.
highly favored?
I am that
Are
too.
you delivered?
What's up,
Yes, I have.
Rockstar skin specialist? I'm trying to get our other guests in here. I keep pressing accept, but it won't let them in.
Uh-oh. This is gonna be a 2v1? Because I can handle it.
Good
I was
Lord.
raised in the jungle.
Why is this not
Nah, I'm just
working?
kidding. I was.
If our other guest is in here, it's saying that you're unable to join. I don't
Huh.
know what
I
that
mean,
means. I don't know. Because I believe I followed you back.
connection.
What the
Instagram just doesn't like us today.
I know, right? They don't want atheists and theists to be friends. They want us to just clash on the internet.
Okay, now it's saying she declined the request. Hold on. Let me see if I
Oh,
can
what?
send it to her.
Okay.
All right, I sent it to her this time. Let's see here.
So, man, shout out to the Braves, an Atlanta team that actually went all the way. Besides the soccer team, of
Who's the
course.
Braves again? That's the
The Atlanta Braves, baseball.
baseball. That's right. Sorry. Harris is going to come back. Just watch.
Pirates?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who are they?
The Pittsburgh Pirates, world's
yeah.
greatest baseball team.
My brothers are Pittsburghers.
We gonna come back, Lord. We going we gonna get a World Series one day. I'm gonna live to see it.
They just got to pray really hard, like Atlanta did.
It's not fair.
It
All
was
right.
it was through prayer and Christ's blood that they won that baseball game. But anyway, I'm proud of Atlanta. I'm proud of my hometown winning one. I don't really follow baseball like that, but
Okay. It's
you
still
know,
saying you're unable to join, Farrell.
man,
This is whack. I don't know what's
this
going
is
on.
why.
I don't know any other way to do this. Because it's not a limit on people. Because you could have up to
Right.
4. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Shoot,
Is
Farrell,
that
how's your internet, Farrell? Or should I say Madison?
Oh, that's what
Oh yeah, that's her.
once more. Okay.
I should try it again.
All right. Let's see. Okay.
No.
There we go.
Hallelujah. Hey,
Hey, thank
Brandon,
the Lord.
play that gospel again, Brandon. Might as well go. You gotta play it again. We're gonna get copyright strike, but fuck it. I can take Kirk.
Let me turn that
Hey,
off before he come and beat me like he did his
I
son.
know, right? Christianity does endorse child abuse. All right,
Well, technically, he
Madison, how you
never hit
been?
him. He just threatened to hit him. That's different. It's two separate things.
Okay, I'll give him
We
that.
can do what you see.
Madison, how you been?
I'm doing well. I'm doing okay.
All right, you got your headphones on. You're all professional in here. So, But before we start, Madison, you're new to the SOS, so please give us your background real quick.
Oh my goodness. I don't even know where to start. Well, I guess I'll say that I am a lifelong entrepreneur. I started my first business when I was 21. I'm involved in TV and film production as well as politics. I currently have a political operation as well as a TV and film production house. I am um, on the board of the American Atheists. I'm very proud of that. Done some work in that space, done some work in a lot of different spaces, and um, I don't know what else to say.
You said a good bit. Shout out to having even more black faces in American Atheists. So shout out to diversity. But anyway, before we waste our viewers' time, let's get right into it. So today we're going to be bridging the gap between theists and atheists. And I just say theists just because this conversation can apply to pretty much any conversation between an atheist and whatever religious person. But although we are talking to two Christians here, but hopefully, Muslims and Jews and Hindus can also learn from this experience as well. Uh, and and as I've admitted before my technical difficulties, yeah, I'm kind of an asshole when it comes to this debate, and I'm trying to learn how to be better. Praysha can definitely agree on that one because she had to deal with it for a decade. Ever since I lost faith, she had to hear about it, and yeah. So i I just want to start off with what we got in common. I think we can all agree on church-state separation, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah, because
Well, I guess before we dive into what we agree and disagree on, I think one thing that I thought about I've been thinking about since you invited us on here is I think if we're going to improve discourse, improve discussion between theists and atheists, I've been thinking a lot about, don't we kind of have to have an understanding or, an idea of what the purpose of the conversation is?
explain.
Well, if, for example, if we're coming on here to debate, right, to see different sides of a viewpoint, I think that's one purpose of a conversation. If we're coming on here to try to convert, right, to try to change each other's minds, to persuade, that's another reason that we could be talking. But if we're coming on here to improve discourse and to hear one another out, then I think that conversation looks very different from the first two. So that's something I've been thinking about since you invited us, to do this, just on that topic of improving discourse,
Okay.
So I was curious about that. I don't know, what your thoughts, all of your thoughts are, or what, you guys were hoping for
Me
today.
personally, I'd say you would definitely strive more for the third point, because let's be real, ain't nobody gonna change each other's minds.
Right.
I mean, that's not. I mean, as much as everybody say they want that, that's most likely not gonna happen. So I think the main point should be in most discourse is to pretty much understand each other on the points of you believe in what you believe, I believe what I believe. Let's just be civil towards each other in general and not want to tear each other's throats out.
I agree with that. But also, atheists and theists also they're going to interact, right?
Right.
Whether it's like between two friends, strangers on the internet, a debate on stage, like those interactions are going to occur and they all going to have their different reasons.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
so I mean, obviously I'm not here to change anybody's mind or necessarily debate. I mean, debate could happen, like depending on what's brought up. But basically, just basically like this purpose of this conversation is be like, sort of like I said, giving out grievances or suggestions on what can be done to improve these conversations, and also like to just ask questions, like to try to understand each other's logic behind things, because I could have a grievance about something that a Christian would say, but you all might have a reason to be like, well, hold on, well, the reason why we do say this is because, I may have a better understanding of some of the points I'll lay out. So yeah, basically just besides improving the conversation is also just getting a better understanding between us. Obviously, four people aren't going to represent all of humanity. Like I don't represent all of atheism, and you two don't represent all of Christianity. You know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know, like discussions like these are just so dynamic in that way. So that's why I wanted to bring us all together for it.
Okay, so yeah, that definitely would be, I guess you could say that would be a grievance that I've had when it comes to these conversations would be what is the, you know, motive behind a person asking, and like you said, whether they're on a stage or they're with a friend or they're whatever the different interactions might be, there's gonna be different motivations behind those interactions, like you said, and I think that is a grievance that I have is, I think a lot of times when those interactions are happening, people would assume, especially if someone is Christian, well, I can speak for myself as a Christian. I think if someone is interacting with me, they might be assuming that because I'm Christian and therefore, of course, I believe in sharing my faith. I believe in other people, coming to faith and all the kinds of transformations that can happen with that. But I think the assumption would be that my goal is to convert when I'm conversing instead of just being able to, hear my perspective as a human being with experiences, just like I could listen to the person who doesn't have who's atheist. I could listen to them from that perspective. So I think that's why I brought that up before we dove into anything, because I think that is a grievance that I have, when it comes to these conversations.
Okay, so I would say this, like for the conversation mostly, like when I say you or y'all, it's like a generic you. Okay, so I would be speaking in generals for the most part. So, okay, so obviously you do not have a like you as in Praysha and Spearman do not have a. Your goal isn't to convert people; it's more so to like just share the gospel, right?
Well, it depends on the
I
conversation, is
mean,
what I'm
I
saying.
mean, like
This right now, this conversation, no,
no,
I'm
I
on
mean,
here
as
to
in
have
like
a
just
conversation.
like yeah, just explaining your faith, like, or just talking about it, in a way. Like you're not
But for
necessarily trying to
example,
convince anybody.
for example, when I was on a mission trip earlier this year. Yes, my goal in sharing my faith was that people could hear it and make a decision for themselves. And I always look at that as because I believe in God and I believe in the Holy Spirit, I believe that it's God's job and the Holy Spirit's job to actually, do the inner work that I can't do there in that opportunity. I'm just a part of, I'm getting to kind of share in an opportunity there. So if I'm sharing my faith in a moment that I believe is an opportunity like that, then I guess to answer your point, I'm not looking at it as me changing someone's mind, because that's not, I can't do that.
Right, of
But I
course.
can share, like I guess that's what you're saying
Mm,
is the difference there that I'd be sharing.
okay, and I guess like in defense of atheists who might jump on that assumption, I mean, there are, well, Christianity is a proselytizing religion by design, and there are sects of Christianity whose main goal is to save as many people as possible. Right. So like, and if you're an atheist who lives in the Bible Belt, you know what I mean, you deal with that a lot. So sometimes our mind might just go into that mode, like, yo, this nigga here, like, we might get a little snappy. But but we should be a little bit more, like, listen a bit more, I guess, to understand where the theist is coming from. Madison, what's your thoughts on that?
You know, I gotta be honest here, and I think that we're not really being completely honest with ourselves. I don't think that I think that when people share their views on things that are this foundational to their belief systems, that they do have a desire for other people to adopt those thoughts and those beliefs. I do.
Mhm.
I think that's honest. And I don't think, I mean, we can play semantics and say, well, I'm not trying to convert people and I can't do it or I can't do it. But I mean, when I talk about atheism and why I don't believe or how I got there and some of the factors that happened, yes, I am actually hoping that if there is someone who is going through a similar thing, that they will begin to ask themselves those same questions.
Oh, no doubt.
So, you know, and I guess I could say just what Praysha said. I can't change anybody's mind, but there are people out there who are already having these doubts and these questions, and primarily as a black woman, particularly, and as a part of a marginalized group, which is the atheists. Um, I do think it's important that we be vocal and
Yeah.
visible. And those of us who have the privilege of being vocal and visible should do that because there are other people who uh, do not have faith uh, or who have it or are doubting it, have questions about it, are not feeling it. They're saying, this and that. And I can't tell you how many times I've been vocal and out when people have said, I didn't know that there were other people like me.
Right.
I think it's important because we are social creatures. So I can't. I think we should first just be really honest with ourselves. I mean, when Christians share their faith, yes, they are hoping that other people who perhaps are primed to accept that faith will hear whatever it is that they're saying and adopt the faith. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You've been charged with that. You've been directed to do that, in fact. So it is what it is. And I think we do the same thing on the non-belief side too. So
I mean, yeah. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. Like my first 4 years, like being a new fresh ace, hell yeah. Well, I was trying to convince everybody. I mean, and I guess I can say I still am, but I guess now I'm just more. I don't know. I guess how can I describe it? It's like I guess I'm more in the sense of like, well, I can plant a seed. I guess. I mean, is this person gonna change their mind? Probably not, but at least I can walk away knowing that this person just knows a different view of things. You know what I mean?
Right.
it took
Like,
me 10 years to deconvert. I believed in God long after I left the church, and I didn't actually stop believing in deities and superstitions until it was about a decade later. So these things do happen, and they are not always instantaneous.
no, I get that. I guess, and don't get me wrong, I have this same issue with a lot of Christians, I'll be honest. Because I guess I should preface this by saying I am an admittedly bad Christian. I know I have
That
many.
means you're a good person. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist that.
But but anyway, I admit I'm a bad Christian, like in sometimes. So I'll be honest. There are times when I'll be critical. I'll be standing in the middle, be critical of like both people, and so I don't really have an issue with either side, quote unquote, delivering a message. Is when it gets like street preachy and up in people's face is when I have an issue. Like, and I've experienced this again on both sides. Like I've been with Christian friends of mine who have, I mean, we'll be talking about something Christian like, but then they'll just start preaching. Oh Lord, what's that? Oh.
Sorry, I didn't know you guys could hear that. That was my phone.
But yeah, I've been with Christian friends of mine, and they've gotten into the weird preachy stuff, and I'd be like, "Hey, bro, chill out. Nobody asked you all that." You know what I mean? Like, and then I do have atheists in my life who have been on that same tip, yelling at everybody, and I'll be like, bro, like you sound crazy, not because you don't believe in God, because you screaming at people, you know what I mean? Like, ain't nobody ask you all that now. Like, and I get what's your name again? Farrell?
Praise.
No, I got
Madison.
your Madison.
Madison.
Why did I remember Praysha and not Madison? Anyway, was it? I got your point, Madison, that everybody wants to have their message heard, which is fine. I don't got an issue with that. It's to me, I guess the issue is when it's like you just how do I word this without sounding dumb? It's like when you just constantly hawking in somebody's ear. Like that shit's annoying. You know what I mean? Like I don't. And that's like I said, that's not a criticism towards just atheists. Christians got it bad too, and anybody who's Christian who's mad at me saying that knows it's fucking true. You know what I mean? Like all up in niggas' ears. So, like, yeah, that's the shit that's bad and should stop. Like, it's one thing if somebody's open to that conversation, you want to talk to them, but if you just up there just yelling at anybody, trying to force a message, and that's whack.
And
Yeah, I think.
go ahead.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I agree. I think we have to recognize that everybody has agency and autonomy, just in general, right?
Right.
Like people do have the right to their own autonomy, and so I think that's really important. But I do want to bring up a little bit about, and I touched on this in my last comment, but I want to touch again on the fact that there are some power imbalances between Christians, particularly in America, and atheists, right? One is a majority and has the privilege and all of the privileges that come along with being in the majority, and one is in the minority
Right.
and does not have any of the privileges that come along with being in the minority. And a lot of us have had genuinely traumatic experiences as a result of our involvement in uh, belief systems. So some of those things, and I like to sort of draw a parallel with white supremacy and black empowerment, right? Um, White folks can say whatever they want. They've enjoyed a great deal of privilege in this country. They've been able to pretty much do whatever they want and have been respected in doing that. While we on the black side have not had these privileges, and uh, sometimes we get frustrated, and sometimes we lash out. And of course, the white people tell us, you gotta be calm, and you gotta be nice, and you gotta watch your tone, and all of those things, right? Without understanding the trauma that we live through on a day-to-day basis. I don't think that that is too terribly different than the atheist experience in the United States. So what you're experiencing sometimes with people who are preachy and people who are angry and people who are in your face is the working through of that trauma. I'm not justifying it because I think that people have to work through their trauma without inflicting harm on other people. But I would say that, it's not an even playing field. We're not on even ground here in the United States. We are in a different place. I can't, as an atheist, go somewhere. I have to be very careful about who I talk about this. I have to be very careful about it. I know for a fact that I've lost business because of it. I would never lose business as a Christian, um, ever. Uh, you know,
Yes.
so, it's just that there are some significant differences, and I think that sometimes people who are in marginalized groups may act in ways that are um, inappropriate,
Yeah,
or I don't want to say inappropriate, but I'll say that sometimes express the frustration, anger, and pain that they've had to process through.
right. Not the best optics.
If I might respond to what Madison was just saying, I just think that definitely hearing you share, you know, that experience, it's interesting to me because I think it's a lot of things that you shared, a lot of Christians could actually relate to a lot of what you said. Even as a Christian, I've experienced significantly problematic experiences within faith, faith systems. Um, even when it comes to being very picky and choosy about who I share my faith with or how I share it. I can imagine it would be even more difficult being an atheist, like you said, especially in the Bible Belt, like you guys were talking about. So while, I hear the parallels of what you're saying about the majority, and comparing that to white supremacy and people not understanding their white privilege and the things that they might say out of their mouths and how that might come across to the minority, um, it makes me go back to, what I was sharing about the importance of knowing the purpose of a conversation or sharing that between the two parties in the conversation, because if the purpose of having these discourses is for the minority to become less marginalized, right? Then we need to say that. We need to say, hey, this conversation is because this group or people are being marginalized in a way that's hindering their quality of life. They don't feel like they belong. They don't feel like they have the same kind of access in our society. Then we can have conversations around what that would look like. If the purpose of the conversation is for that minority group to then become a majority, we should be the majority. We should be able to, co-create what's going on in our society and make demands on our society the same way we see this majority group is able to. We want to be that group, and we want that group that's a majority now to become the minority. Then that's a whole different conversation. So it makes me think about, and this is something I wanted to kind of contribute to this conversation, is when I was in grad school, we did projects around othering, which you guys may have heard of that term, othering. Othering is the idea that there are others who are not like me. And one of the projects that we did was a discussion around, not a roundtable discussion, but we sat in a circle and we placed some ground rules around the discussion, which said, when someone's talking, everyone else is going to just listen. They're not going to interrupt. And the point of having this conversation is that you would hear their point, and you would wait until it's your turn to talk. And when it is your turn to talk, you would share your point. You're not going to try to convince others or, like we talked about what the purpose of the conversation was, and it was to hear others' viewpoints, and to just see what that felt like. Like, to be in a room, I would say like this, so far, this is what this has been like for me is, we're hearing each other. What does it feel like to be in this space together? What does it feel like to hear someone else's feelings and experiences and beliefs? And what came out of that, and this is when I was in school to become a therapist. So the point was, getting us experience with sitting in a room, right, with people who were not like us and who had different views from us. They even picked the topic of discussion, and all of the topics that we discussed were ethics based. So it might be a situation like, someone robbing a bank because they needed to feed their child during Hurricane Katrina, you know, or not robbing a bank, robbing a convenience store or something like that. And, you know, hearing different people's viewpoints on an ethics issue. So, but what came out of that was that it just seemed a lot more important that within those spaces, people experience dignity and they experience being heard and not being interrupted. And when other people spoke, they didn't tear down the other person's point. You know, it was just that whole experience was honestly, it was transformative even for me, I would say. Because like you all are sharing, I've been in so many spaces before that anyway, you know, that were just what's right or wrong, what's right or wrong. You're right, I'm wrong. And that's it. It's like, if one person's right and another person's wrong, somebody has to leave the room or somebody is not welcome. You know, like it's stressful. It's just stressful.
And just to respond to that, but I ain't gonna lie, I can't. It's hard to resist tearing down a point, especially when, you know, it's not the most well thought out point in the world. But I'm working on that for sure. And I'll definitely say obviously to kind of summarize where we're at so far, as Madison said, with autonomy, basically to make this conversation better. Something that I had to learn personally: make sure the other party feels like talking about it. Because I ain't gonna lie, I was that guy. You know, I would walk up to a Christian and be like, hey, motherfucker, hey, can you explain this part in the Bible, nigga? You know what I'm saying? They'd be like, God, dude, come on. Please stop mocking my also powerful God. You know I'm a victim. Oh. But you know, like I was that annoying atheist motherfucker. So yeah, basically just make sure the other party is actually consents to that conversation, because to some believers it takes a lot of energy to talk about it. And also the other way around, you know, if you're somebody's Uncle Bob, please leave your atheist nephew alone at the Thanksgiving table, bro. You don't want to talk about God with you. And I guess just to make people feel heard, I would say a suggestion would be to I guess try to like repeat your interlocutor's point back to them. You know what I mean? That way it shows them that you're listening to them, and also if you get it wrong, they can correct you and help you to better understand their point some more. So thanks for sharing that, Praysha.
And I think also the main thing too is to approach somebody with like respect. You know what I mean? Like for real, I remember I was in high school. The dude, like he was an atheist, came up to me and like started fucking with me. I instantly was like, "You got two choices: walk away, or I'm gonna punch you in the face." Like, cause he just started yelling at me. You know what I mean? And I wasn't even talking about God. I think I was talking about what the fuck was on TV the day before. Like I was like, we wasn't talking about you. Like you know. So I think it all comes down to respect. You know what I mean? Like nobody should go up to somebody with the, you know, like you could attend a debate. That's fine. Debates is one thing, but going up
I
like
love it.
disrespect. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like you know, like that'd be like if we started this and one of y'all came on here. All right, first of all, fuck y'all. You know what I mean? Like, would you want to stay for that conversation? Hell no. Like, you know,
I would. I love conflict. I like a debate. I mean, I don't necessarily like conflict.
exactly. You
But
know,
you know,
like debate. I guess that's the main point we should focus on: the difference between debates and conflicts. The debate is fine. Conflict is just stupid,
but
and it ends with both people ended up mad, walking away.
but I will say this though, and this is the sort of piggyback off of Madison's point of us atheists being a minority. So look, like sometimes to be labeled as militant, all we have to do is ask you, how do you know that? You know what I mean? So
Right,
I mean, so I guess like in a way, like just I guess try to understand, like as Madison said, just like try to understand like where we're coming from, because
right,
one of the things that, and I'm just using an example, like one of the things that Christians would do that would just piss me off is they would say, well, maybe you weren't actually a Christian. And I'd be like, yes, the fuck I was. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Right.
and sometimes I actually did have that response. But they're like, "Hey, Marcus, you angry atheist, why would you say? Look, you just insulted me." You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Right. Yeah.
so I guess just
That's bad.
try to be just I don't know, I guess going back to her point again, if you're like a white person talking to a person of color, just be mindful of you might say something
Right.
and it might tick them off, and it's just a microaggression that you might not have understood.
And a
You know?
thing that definitely will help me in the future, Madison, what you brought up on how like the fact that you took the time to like pretty much school us on what it feels like being, like from y'all's perspective, like how hurtful it is being so marginalized. That's something I kind of knew, but didn't really know until I had somebody like you telling me. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, like I talk about that dude in high school. Maybe he was having a pissed off day because somebody said something to him that day. You know what I mean? And he came up to me. Now that I think you brought up too, how it doesn't really excuse some people's actions, but it can help inform it. And so I guess like from now on, I guess now I can kind of like walk out in the world with that mindset of, well, maybe something happened to them that pissed them off earlier, or like where they felt on the outside and they had to come at you crazy.
Well, I think we all have some advantages. Those of us here in this room talking right now have advantages because I could draw analogies to our experiences as people of color, right?
Right,
So because we understand um, how it feels when we try to communicate what we're saying to people who are in the majority or whatever. Um, and like Marcus said, it take they will label us angry when we're not angry at all, especially as black women. I know Praysha understands this intimately. Uh,
Man, y'all be tripping,
you
man.
know, we are angry when we articulate ourselves and and say what we want to say, and it's anger. It's not
Right.
anger. It's not anger. And I've experienced with respect to Christianity or even any kind of belief system, um, if because these are identities that people have, right? It's not something that they see as separate from themselves. They see it as very much integrated with who they are. So it's really important uh, when you ask questions, sometimes those can feel like personal attacks to people, even though you're not attacking them personally. But people respond as if it's a personal attack because this identity is very, very closely interwoven with who they are. Just like as black people, if we say something about white supremacy, some white people get very offended.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, but if it's not you, it's not you.
Right.
Or,
Hit
calm
dog.
down. Yeah, just calm down. Nobody is fighting you here. We're bringing up this particular thing that is part of our lived experience, right? Or whatever. So I think there's a lot of parallels, and I think the good thing about this conversation is that it's easy to draw those parallels because we all share an experience of being black people in a white supremacist system, in a white supremacist country and world, right? So we know how to navigate that and how sometimes those things can happen, and how privilege can give you a blind spot a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that you said about how some white people can get offended, and you're saying, if it's not you, then, you can calm down and not respond that way, right? Because it made me think about when it comes to, you know, again, you have, like you said, you have atheists who feel very marginalized and are having this experience that's very challenging for them in a world that's full of theists, basically. I would say another thing that can help the discourse between them and theists would be, I think this is a human thing that like if a theist goes to an atheist and says something that, like you said, could trigger them and make them angry, it would help for that person to see it as, they maybe that was a trigger based on something that makes sense within their world, you know? But I think that's a human thing. You know, if an atheist sees a Christian or a theist who is approaching them with um, whatever methods they may have, whether it's, like y'all said, yelling on the street or other things I've seen, especially going inside certain churches, you know, that really alarmed me, right? I think also looking at them as a human who has had certain experiences that while it doesn't excuse their behavior, if you knew their story, you might have a bit more empathy on even even white supremacists, I could say, if we want to use that parallel. You know, I don't know if you guys know the story of there was I forget the name of this black man who befriended the KKK.
I know who you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, that guy. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
He better than
I
me.
thought that was what did you say?
I said he better than me. I would not step a foot near no Klan rally.
I couldn't foresee myself doing anything. So that's an incredible story that he could even do that. But I don't recall the whole story, but I do recall just hearing the white supremacist, the KKK guy saying things that was just really relatable on a human level of just how he felt, you know, and his personal experience. And so it's like it's an interesting thing that we as humans have the propensity to, again, like you said, have these interactions where our motives are all over the place, of what we think is going to happen as a result of shouting or trying to put our beliefs on someone, or, you know, debating or approaching someone in a way, or bringing conflict. But underneath all that, white supremacists also would evoke some empathy from us if we could listen. You know, the theists who are standing on a soapbox and yelling, if we could hear their story, we might be evoked to have some empathy for them. And I say that not in a general sense, because again, I'm not excusing any of those kinds of behaviors that would, you know, hurt someone else. I've been hurt by, you know, racism and people who were making me feel like I was going to go to hell, you know. But I think, like Marcus was saying, where I used to be in my younger years, the kind of person who thought that that was what it was all about, was who's right, who's wrong, and that's all that mattered. I kind of realize now that that's not what matters the most. You know, I just came across this word dignity recently. You guys are probably going to hear it thrown around a lot more, because I think these, you know, educational circles are kind of picking up on it, but there's a very like unifying piece about it, you know, that we as humans are seeking that. You know, we want to know that our stories are welcome and belong in society where we are, you know, that we have access, we belong, you know, we can co-create and we can make demands on our society, you know, like Madison was saying, like the majority would be able to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that you said that, you know, about the empathy for the people who are in the position of privilege. And it's funny because as people who, most of us who, particularly black people, but most of us who are non-believers, were once believers. So understanding the mindset of a person who is a believer is not hard for me because I was there, right? Like, I understand why they're doing what they're doing. I understand how they feel. I understand their motivations. I understand them because I was them. That is not true in reverse. And again, we're talking about the difference now between people who are in an environment where whatever it is that they believe is in the majority. They enjoy the privilege of not having to think about that. It's just like in every black person understands white people.
Hmm. Trust me, I have to talk like them every day. So, hello, Madison.
I think she cut out a bit.
But
Uh, I guess we can go on the issue of understanding.
but
I
what
know.
Madison said is true, though. I mean, being a former Christian, I mean, I do understand like sort of the inner workings, but to be fair, I only understand Christianity as a black man. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, we are familiar, like kind of like with these like thought points. You know?
Yeah.
Hey, you're back.
Hey, I'm back.
All right, finish your thought. You got cut
Yeah,
off.
I was just saying that most of us who have deconverted do understand that mindset because we were there. And most of us, at least in my experience, were extremely serious about our faith. I know I was. I was extremely serious about it. I mean, extremely serious. I was not what you would say was a bad Christian. I was a very, very good Christian, and I did all the right things. But so I understand it. I do understand it. And it's just like as black people, it's a survival mechanism to understand the majority culture, the privileged culture, the white culture, and to be able to navigate that space successfully because it's a matter of our survival in some cases and also a matter of our ability to survive and thrive within the white supremacist system. It's very important for us to be able to navigate their world, but they do not know our world at all, not even a little bit. They don't understand how we think. They don't understand our culture. They don't understand how we communicate. I mean, we even communicate differently than they do, don't we?
I
I
mean,
mean,
I
there's
think
so
Dr.
many
Ken Ham
differences.
understands this pretty good.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that, again, when you have a marginalized group and a privileged group, there is an imbalance, and I do think that there is space for that marginalized group to be a little bit more vocal, and sometimes, yeah, sometimes it is in your face. I think of every movement that has been successful, every group of people who've been marginalized who have, you know, created movement toward trying to get visibility and equal rights. The LGBT community, Black, empowerment and liberation movements. All of these movements have always had to be a little bit what no matter who it was, the majority always labeled them angry and pushy and belligerent and all of those things. It goes with the territory. Um, And I think some of that is necessary in order for marginalized voices to be heard. I don't know who's going to stick up for atheists in America, right? Like um, when the LGBT movement was trying to get marriage equality, there were allies. Um, as black people, BLM is not just black folks. We do have allies. We do have anti-racists that are helping us with pushing our agenda. I don't know who the allies are for atheists. Who are our allies? Who is going to stand up for us and to say, you know what, these people deserve to not be treated in as second-class citizens. Um, they deserve to not be afraid. They deserve to be able to, I mean, if in some places, if you admit that you don't believe in God, you're not gonna, there's a lot. There are a lot of consequences that can come from that. So, but we don't have allies, right? Because religious people believe that we are wrong. And that's their right to believe that we're wrong. But they're not going to stand up for us because for a variety of reasons, but at its foundation, they believe that we're wrong. And at worst, they believe that by doing so, they would, get their deity mad at them, or they might incur some kind of curse or some kind of something bad
So
will happen to them because they're
so
sticking up for atheists. So
Madison, let me. I don't mean to cut you off, but so let me ask you a question. I guess, is it possible for a theist to, in their mind think, oh yeah, they're toast, they're going to hell, but simultaneously believe that we have rights, like at least like in a secular nation
I don't
like the
know.
U.S.
I think it
Like,
depends. I think they would say it depends because, like, let's be honest, right? Um, it's not possible to think that I'm wrong and going to hell without an underlying feeling about me as a person. And I don't know if, see, the problem is this is, it does differ from other, movements like the LGBT movement and the Black liberation movement, because these are foundational beliefs that people have. And so when you say, if I were to say, if I talk about how my life is as an atheist in the United States, and I'm concerned about having those maintaining rights or gaining rights. I don't want to be discriminated against, if I want to adopt children or if I want to run for political office, right? You've never heard, I think we have one out atheist in Washington now, and a couple who work in the city and county levels, but these are things that you can't do. I don't know.
I mean, I do think, all right, in terms of the ones who think like y'all going to hell, yeah, I mean, it would be rough for, trying to get those people to argue for y'all, but I don't know, was it, Prussia could probably, speak, in her experience, but, growing up, other than like the really older members of my family, most of the younger people, like, they don't really feel that strongly when it comes to atheism. Now, I'm just talking about people I know in my personal life, like, people I knew from church and in my family stuff. Most people didn't really care that strongly to the point that they thought all y'all was like going to hell. They may disagree, but in terms of like saying like tomorrow, if like it came out like, if y'all got the visibility that you were talking about you desperately needed, tomorrow it hit the news saying that y'all was losing all these opportunities and stuff, I don't really think the younger people nowadays would really be opposed to that. You know what I mean? Because, you know, I'd say, again, as a younger Christian, I'd say more so younger people nowadays kind of view religion as more of a, this is going to be the wrong word to use, but more of a choice, I guess, in terms of like, kind of like,
it's most definitely a choice. I mean,
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you can choose to be Christian or you can choose to convert to another religion, like, so I don't really, so I'd say, more of the younger people would probably be all right in terms of y'all getting equal rights. I mean, like, and I think that's the case for most issues, you know what I mean? I'd say same with like LGBTQ, now that's more of a marginalized group than I'd say in terms of like religious people, but I'd say even with them, like the older generation is dying off of the people who desperately hate them. You know what I mean? Like now there are people who are gonna feel how they feel, but in terms of the people who are staunch and not letting them have like their right to be human beings, like I'd say more and more of those people are dying off or not voting, period. So I'd say, yeah, me personally, I can't say that the Christians I know of would be opposed to y'all having your full, representation.
I would add to what is your name? I just know you as Marcus's brother.
I'm Brandon. Sorry, I should have introduced
Okay,
myself
Brandon.
earlier.
Yeah, he did say it. I would add to what Brandon was saying by saying that while he's probably right about people who just vehemently are, well, he's probably right in terms of a majority of people who are just vehemently hating, you know, people who don't believe like they do. I think you're right about that, that's kind of going out of style, thankfully. And the younger generations are seeing the importance, of not treating people like crap. Let's just put it that way. But I think something that is not dying off, let's hope that it is. It could be. This is something that, I learned about in my lifetime, so maybe this would decrease. Is the amount of people, I would say if this is dying off, this is something that's dying off slower, which is the amount of people who have a real difficulty with dialectics is what we call it in therapy. But the ability to view something from someone else's point of view and to hold their own view and someone else's view at the same time, in the same space, in the same conversation. I think while that's probably growing, I think it's growing slower because we still, I think what you guys, I think Madison was just talking about, that experience of people who, just nobody being an ally, or not being able to run for office, things like that. I think is an issue of dialectics more than it is an issue of religion. Because
Uh,
the reason I say that is because I think whether you're a theist or not, if you have the ability to say, well, let me speak from a Christian perspective. I would say even now, while Christians, okay, we know that even within the Christian faith, there's a lot of differences between different types of Christians and different beliefs within Christianity. And when we look at political spaces or rights to whether I'm gonna lose jobs or be able to be in certain social circles.
I hate to cut you off, but Instagram is giving me a 2-minute warning. I
ah,
cannot believe that. That's
that's a
crazy.
that's okay. We can just start another one because this is a good
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah. No, I'll start up another one. That's crazy. They usually don't ever give me that. That's wild.
I'll
All
hold
right.
my thought while you guys start another one.
Okay, okay.
Okay. All
But
right.
but I guess to summarize, I mean, it is valuable to understand the systemic issues that us atheists do have to go through, and what kind of makes it worse is, I guess one reason why we won't have allies is just because other groups, let's say like the LGBTQ, is like, I mean, religion. I mean, okay, whatever. I don't care. Like a lot of people just have that, like, this is like it's a religious argument. Who cares? But they don't understand how the GOP, like, just like indoctrination is real. Like since the 50s, America has just been sowing Christianity like into its like laws and stuff. So it makes it very hard, you know. And also just every church on every corner down here in the South. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, religion itself is a system, So it's one
All
of
right,
those.
y'all. I
All
will
right.
collapse this and pop it back up. Thank
Okay.
y'all. All right.